Hi, everyone, and welcome to Make America Healthy. My name is Beth Shaw. I'm the host of this podcast, the author of 4 books on health and wellness, and the founder of YogaFit Training Systems Worldwide, the world's largest yoga mind-body school for over 26 years. Today's topic is a very exciting one as I get ready to launch a longevity program for YogaFit. The topic of our podcast today is longevity. And we are joined by Dr. Joy Kong. I have actually been to her practice and seen her. She has her own podcast, and she is an expert in longevity. Before we get started, we'd like to thank our title sponsor, Prevamedica, offering innovative testing for food sensitivities, micronutrient deficiencies, methylation, and other state-of-the-art tests, as well as one-on-one nutrition and lifestyle consultations. I've done this test from Cell Sciences Prevamedica, and I was shocked to find out how many healthy things I'm actually sensitive to. Things like arugula and broccoli and jalapenos, my favorite things to eat. I can vouch for them. When I eliminated these foods from my diet, my gut bloating went away and I actually felt much better. So these are very effective tests and they will help you. Maybe you're having a weight gain issue. Maybe you have fatigue. Maybe something's just not quite right about your digestive system. So I can't say enough good things about these tests. If you are interested, you can go to previmedica.com. You can visit them online, or you can call them to get your questions answered at 855-773 extension 111. That's 855-773-8463. Again, Cell Sciences, Prevamedica, food sensitivity tests. Check it out. Without further ado, Dr. Kong, welcome to Make America Healthy.
Yes, thank you, Beth. So happy to be here with you.
So I'll let you introduce yourself. Again, I've been to your clinic in California and you have a great podcast. Tell us about your credentials, how you ended up becoming such an expert in longevity and what you're up to now.
Beth, it really came from my own quest to stay healthy, right? I count myself lucky to have been endowed with a very healthy body that my mom gave me, but it's my responsibility to do with it based on what I can institute, right? And eating healthy and taking different supplements and just learning everything about life. I went into medicine because I wanted to help people to reduce suffering. That's really the whole point, to bring up more happiness, right? I want people to be happier. But of course, I want to take care of myself. Healer, heal thyself.
Yes, we teach what we need to learn.
You put on your own oxygen before you put on somebody else. So I want to make sure that I know what I'm doing for myself. So in that process, I saw the limitation of Western medicine, how it did not give me the foundation of enhancing my health. It gave me the foundation of figuring out what terrible thing is going on when somebody's sick. So that's what it taught me. Come to me when you're sick. That's where I'm actually useful. But I don't want to be only useful at that point. I want to be useful when you're really healthy and really vibrant, so I can make you healthier, which is where I was at. I was healthy, but how can I be better? How can I age more gracefully? How can I look better, feel better, move better, and think better? So that was the quest that ended up leading me to anti-aging medicine. Is really an offshoot of holistic integrated medicine, what's called functional medicine. So it's all the same branch, which is looking at the body as a very complex whole and looking at different factors, microbiome, toxicity, hormones, and nutrition. So when I was doing the deep dive on all of these aspects that I can utilize to enhance myself, that's when I encountered stem cell therapy. That's when my mind was blown because I was living in a cocoon. I thought that stem cells were still under research, that nobody was using it because we're still researching it. That's how behind I was, and that's how behind most doctors are. I wasn't alone. So I was living with blinders on, working with blinders on. If all you know is what you've been taught in medical school, in different medical conferences, in your residency, talking to all your attendings, and they all have gone through the same program. So everybody is locked in their models. So unless you're looking outside of the model, you don't know what's going on. So I didn't even know people were doing stem cells. So 8 years ago, that's when I found out Oh my goodness, you said what? So this doctor said, I use stem cells to treat this patient with autism. And I was like, what? I I'm a psychiatrist. I've treated autistic kids. They're very, very difficult. What did you find out? And then he showed me the notes from the teacher. The teacher sent all these comments of how much the kid has improved from eye contact to ability to verbalize, to communicate with other kids, to not being procrastinating, to not being hyperactive, just all these 40 things that he was able to see. And to me, that was incredible because I couldn't do that. I was trained in treating autism and I couldn't bring about 10% of changes that he could bring about with a simple IV infusion of stem cells. I was like, you have to tell me about this. So that's how I got into it. And the more I read about it, the more I learn about the research from all around the world, that's when I saw that this is a game changer because it not only can help with all these chronic conditions and of course acute issues too, but also can prolong health and reduce the rate of aging. I got into this very deep dive and then accumulated all these articles, all this knowledge in my head. And that's when I realized that all these doctors I talked to, they all need what I have to share. So then I founded an academy of integrative cell therapy. And that's where I train other doctors. And then I also started my own stem cell company because I saw a lot of problems in the industry because people going into this for the money. Yes, there are a lot of money, but that should not be the reason that you're in this. The reason is to help people, to heal people. The money will always come because you're bringing value to the world. I saw this kind of upside down priority for all these stem cell labs. And that's when I decided that I have to do it on my own because whatever I promise you, my number one is my patients. Of course, I'm injecting all these products into myself as part of my anti-aging regimen. I'm not going to compromise on myself or my patients or anybody. I want to bring these products to everybody around the world. So that's a quick overview.
So most of your work in longevity revolves around stem cells, which I understand were not always legal in the US. Is that correct?
Depending on what kind of cells you're using. So the type of cells that we're using is umbilical cord derived stem cells. These are from live healthy births. So these are healthy births. The mothers are young. They've gone through very strict screening and they are going through elective C-sections so that when a baby's going through a C-section obtained by C-section, there's no contamination. So we are able to obtain everything that in a sterile environment. But if you start to manipulate the cells, say if you start to use chemicals or enzymes to obtain the cells, to digest away the tissue, to free the cells, or you start to put the cells in a culture to grow them into huge numbers. Now you are manipulating. So in the FDA's eyes, when you are manipulating the cells, then you are introducing unforeseen factors. You could be triggering genetic changes. You could be causing potential side effects, rejection.
Let's stop there for a minute because that's very interesting. So, injecting stem cells from another human being into your own body, from what I understand, it can trigger different diseases. It can change your genetic code. I've have friends very high up in the health and wellness industry who have said if you're doing stem cells, you could have a past life regression that's not even of your lineage or your past life, could be somebody else's psychic experience. So it does get a little out there. My main concern, of course, would be, and I have been to your clinic. I didn't know much about it, but I one time did some stem cell therapy with you because I too am a guinea pig and I don't always do all the research before I do things. Would stem cells put someone in harm's way who is otherwise healthy? Not to say, okay, stem cells, because I have a knee issue or a shoulder issue, a normal, healthy person in their 50s who decides, I want to look better, feel better, live longer, whatever. Would I be putting myself in harm's way or did I?
Okay, so you have to look at cell sources, right?
Right.
What kind of cells you're using, how you're injecting it, Who is the person injecting it? Are they doing the right thing? Where are they injecting it? So any procedure, right? You're puncturing the skin, you're opening, you're entering the body.
And
So
you're
any
putting these,
procedure,
a lot of
right?
times they're put intravenously.
But there are people who put in the eye, which I would not do unless the technology has improved significantly. There are many ways that you can put the cells into the body. So that introduces more risks. If the provider doesn't know what they're doing, they're careless, or they are just not following protocol, or they went in the wrong place. Medical error, that happens everywhere. So that can happen to anybody. Even intravenous, there's local bruising, swelling. But I think you're asking about serious side effects. And that depends on what kind of cells you're using. In our clinic, most of the clinics that I've seen in the US do not use embryonic stem cells. Those can cause potential tumor, what's called teratoma, uncontrolled
And
growth
that's
cells.
what they're using in other countries. I
They use
have
embryonic
friends
stem
in
cells.
Turkey that have the stem cells put in their face from embryos. Are they putting themselves in harm's way?
Possibly, yeah, because there is a chance of teratoma formation, so these uncontrolled tumor. Whereas this kind of cells that we're using from the umbilical cord after the baby's born, these are cells that are much more mature than what's in the embryo. The embryo really, they obtain the embryonic stem cells at day 5 to 7 after fertilization. Those are very young cells, and they have wild potentials. Not to mention that some of these embryos may not have been able to form a full healthy human baby. Not every embryo can form a healthy baby. There could be all kinds of genetic changes. That's why it's not easy to get pregnant, because there may be certain miscarriages because the genetic code is not perfect. But when you're obtaining from that young of a baby, there could be all kinds of things that were going wrong. You don't know because you're obtaining it at such an early stage. It hasn't gone through the test of time. But if you're obtaining from a life healthy newborn, the baby's born, but the umbilical cord is cut, and you're taking the cord, and that has gone through the whole process with the baby's healthy already. Whatever cells that are in the cord, that these have healthy genetic material, that they're not going to form a particular type of genetic defect. But embryonic stem cells just on its own can form teratoma. So that same as induced pluripotent stem cells. All these we cannot control very well yet. There are issues. And when you use embryonic stem cells, that's from another human. And there's also a chance of rejection, depending on what they're doing with embryonic stem cells.
What I'm hearing
in this country
is that people really need to do their research because this sounds kind of scary.
Yeah, if you don't know the science, you don't know the potential. That's why there are people who had stem cells injected into their back and then they grew a tumor
And
on their
oh,
back.
I was going to ask you because I know that a lot of doctors advocate for, I mean, let's say functional medicine doctors, if you're having a knee issue, get your knee injected with stem cells. Could someone who's doing this run the risk of getting tumors in their knees?
Not the kind of stem cells we're using, local cord derived stem cells. There's no such thing as tumor, the teratoma risk, because they're so further down the differentiation pathway, they don't have that potential anymore. So there's no teratoma risk. There's the umbilical cord derived stem cells is so safe. I challenge people to go online, do your own research, search for side effects, for problems, because I have patients who do that, very nervous patients
Yeah.
who are scouring the internet looking for terrible things that has happened. And let me tell you, if there were 1% of the terrible things that could happen to stem cells, as what's in every approved medication, stem cells would have been shut down. If you look at side effects, the serious side effects, it's very scary. But I challenge anyone to find stem cells with even 1% of the majority of the approved FDA-approved medications.
So what about these clinics? I know there's one in Panama. I've actually had a few friends go there and they have stem cells, and I don't know what kind of stem cells they are. They have them injected into their whole body as just anti-aging and prevention. What are your thoughts on that? And again, I'm sure you can't comment on things outside of the US and clinics and in other
Oh,
countries.
no, I can. I actually commented on it before. We have patients who have gone to Panama, gone to Mexico, gone to Costa Rica, all these places. I can tell you almost all of them, maybe with rare exceptions that I don't know of yet, but everyone I know of, they use expanded stem cells. So that's not what we use. In the US, if you start to grow the cells into huge numbers and you want to inject back into a person, you have to get FDA approval to be under a clinical study. You can't just say, this is what I do, this is what I provide. I can do that with my products right now. So our stem cell product is considered a minimally manipulated stem cell product. So it has not gone through manipulation. So the FDA says, okay, you're doing a tissue transplant. You're just transplanting one tissue from one person to another. It's not a drug. But if you start to change it, if you start to use chemicals, you start to expand and grow the cells, then there are genetic changes. And we all know that there are genetic changes happening when you start to grow the cells. So they go through a senescence. So they start to get older and older. They start to differentiate. They start to change their expressions of different proteins. This is widely known scientific fact. My problem with a lot of the clinics overseas is that they expand these cells to many generations. They just keep expanding them to the point where you cut down the cost a lot, because if you can imagine,
it's not cheap to go to these clinics. I think a friend of mine paid something like $25,000 to do
wow,
the whole body and face.
that's definitely a lot more than what we charge in our clinics. It's interesting. That's the problem I see, that they're maximizing their profit by cutting down their cost.
It
So
seems
when
to
you
be the way of everything these days.
But the problem is, when you grow the cells to such huge numbers, they start to differentiate to express surface markers that's consistent with the donor. These stem cells are called native stem cells, so they haven't been expanded, and they don't have surface markers that mark them as foreign to your body, and they can adapt and work with your body. But when you start to grow them in culture, they start to express all these markers that your body can recognize as foreign, and then you inject into somebody's body.
Basically, you're rejecting your own tissue at that point.
There's much higher chance of rejection, because imagine these people have HLA markers that are not the same as yours, and these cells have expressed all these markers and all these proteins. Then your body will mount an attack. And what's interesting is that Tony Robbins actually did a little review on his book. I love Tony Robbins. I think he's amazing, but some of the information was not correct when he said, oh, when you get stem cell therapy, you're going to get cytokine storm. That's part of the picture. That's what you expect. I have never seen cytokine storm in the treatments I provided for my patients, because these cells are so pure. They don't have the markers that will trigger this kind of response. And they also are not stressed in culture. So they don't secrete these inflammation molecules, signals that sends your body into this high inflammatory state. So depending on what you're getting, if you're getting expanded cells, there are a lot more risks.
So let's talk about, speaking of cytokine storms, and people are listening to this podcast and considering doing some type of stem cell therapy. Some people got vaccinated for COVID, other people didn't. Some people don't want anything close to a COVID vaccine in their body. Would they be putting themselves in harm's way or at risk by getting some stem cells from someone who got vaccinated and then gave birth? And I'm assuming that those vaccinated mothers, then some type of transmission happens into the baby, right? Even if the baby wasn't vaccinated.
There is some evidence that there are genetic changes. That's the point of the vaccine, right? It's a genetic modification vehicle. It is not the traditional vaccine that we've learned in medical school. This is a genetic manipulation that has been shown to pass down into the baby as well. So when we do umbilical cord extractions, the cord contains the cells of the baby, it's not the mother's. But because of the transmission between a mother and the baby, yes, there's a potential risk. What I'm doing in this field probably is still rare in the US, because most laboratories are accepting mothers who have been vaccinated by COVID vaccine. But to me, it's a risk I'm unwilling to take for my patients and for myself. So we absolutely do not accept any mothers who want to be donors who have been vaccinated.
Do you do genetic testing on these stem cells from the umbilical cord before you?
Yeah, so far, I think it's going to be very hard to do. So we are relying on history. And then, frankly, I don't know if people who are vaccinated are very proud that they have been vaccinated, because these women have gone through very strict screening, have very good medical records with their OBGYN. That's what we're going with. So I doubt women will lie about their vaccination status to their OBGYN.
Expanding our topic of longevity and anti-aging, aside from stem cells, which are interesting and definitely cutting edge, what else can you tell us about ways that people can stay youthful, other than yoga, of course, which I believe is the ultimate?
I love yoga too.
What can our listeners do to live a healthier, more vibrant life into their 80s, 90s, and maybe even become centurions?
Yeah, absolutely. I really think we're heading toward 150 is not going to be a big deal pretty soon. So we have a chance of expanding our health span tremendously.
It's on decline now, isn't it?
I'm not sure, but I think there are definitely a group of people that are very conscientious about what they put in their body, what they do with it, and that's allowing them to reverse their aging to some degree, as you can see in these biological age testing when they check
I
your
just actually
markers.
did one of those.
I can tell you what I do because I really practice what I preach. So whatever I tell my patients to do, that's what I do. So definitely eating healthy, right? Anti-inflammatory diet and move your body, do something every day. And so that's really non-negotiable. These two are non-negotiables. And
And do
then
you have a specific diet that you advise your clients or patients to undergo? Because we keep hearing Mediterranean diet's so amazing. Even functional medicine doctors are huge proponents of keto. Uh,
yeah, I kind of
specific.
do a combination. I think I try to stick with keto, but I'm not a fanatic about it. If there's once in a while eating some complex carbohydrate, that's great. But I think, first of all, eating all these carbs growing up did not do me any good because I struggled.
Where did you grow up, Dr. Kong?
In China, yeah,
Okay.
rice is everywhere.
Yeah.
Rice, noodles, and those did not do me any good. As delicious as they are, they made me puffy. They made me struggle with just how to keep weight off. I had trouble being slim. I was always just a little extra. But
Just kind of, I mean, I've spent a lot of time in Japan and China. I do not see many overweight people in either one of those countries.
people are more prone to not dealing with carbohydrates as well. My mom's somewhat overweight, not super overweight,
Do you think it's a
20
blood, do you think
pounds.
it's a blood type issue? Or just more of a pitta vata kapha issue or an ectomorph?
Maybe more than that. I think
Okay.
there are more factors involved. Body types, I'm sure, give some kind of clue. People can do genetic testing and they can see if their body is good at processing carbohydrates. So I don't think I'm the best at it. The excess carbs can cause more craving, more weight gain, and more inflammation. So when I cut them out, then it's really easy to maintain weight. I don't think anyone really need that much sugar as far as getting simple carbs and to utilize as fuel. But if you do a lot of high intensity sports, sure, that you can consume those. And I don't think that's a big deal. Some people thrive on carbs. That's why the genetic testing these days that can tell you what type you are,
And
which
would you recommend a genetic test in particular? I did 23andMe, and then I remember there was some other site
yeah,
I was
I
able to sync it
can.
to, and that kind of told me a little bit more about what I should be eating and what I shouldn't be eating. Although, as I mentioned in the beginning of the show, then I took the Cell Sciences Prevamedica food sensitivities test, and even some very healthy things for me were not that
I
healthy.
think you have to take those things with a grain of salt. I've done all those tests and there's dogma, but there's complexity.
And I'm sure you go to
Yeah.
a lot of the same shows I do, A4M,
Yeah.
IFM, and you'll see that every other booth these days is some type of a test.
Yeah, the bottom line is how you feel, but you can certainly do some tests and that will give you some clue. So if the test says you are, avocado is bad for you, and you
Right.
can cut it out and then see how you do. And then after a few weeks, eat an avocado and see
Yeah.
how you do. I think go that way. Diet, exercise. In my clinic, I have a very comprehensive approach because I don't just do stem cells. I think that would be silly.
Some very good blood testing for me, probably one of the best blood tests I ever had, which I believe was SpectraCell. Incredibly comprehensive. I understand the Chinese have now bought that company.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh. I didn't know. I know they've gone through some changes. The lab test is going to be very helpful, telling you exactly what nutrients that are lacking, because we can all eat what we think are nutritious, but we end up maybe not absorbing it, or the food itself doesn't contain enough of it, or your microbiome doesn't have the right composition to actually help you take advantage of those nutrients. You don't know exactly how your body's utilizing it. So those tests are very helpful. And I think diet, exercise, and sleep are probably three of the most important things. And then all these other things are really amazing. So I utilize them in my clinic. I definitely utilize peptides. I think they are very hot topic these days.
And a lot of them are getting banned by the FDA, is that correct?
Oh, this is temporary. I think it's like a old die hard. The old system is thrashing around saying, we don't want to go away. We don't want to go away. You're hurting us. You're hurting our bottom line. Eventually, because this works, people are going to get it.
Until
People are
the
going to get
drug
it.
companies and the pharmaceutical companies will then buy these peptide companies, and then it will be much like cannabis, all of a sudden legal, right?
Yeah, money plays a very important part in all this, in how medicine is practiced these days, for sure. Unfortunately, because the people that are paying for it are the people who are suffering. Because we already have generations of people who took way too many drugs and relied on drugs for their health, and they have already been sick and died, been harmed. So when is that going to stop? Stops with people who are forward thinking.
Do you
Stop.
really think, Dr. Kong, that it's the pharmaceutical industry is so powerful in this country? And I think over a certain age, people are like on an average of 9 different pills. Do you think that's ever going to turn around here? Or do you think because of profit, and we profit off of people being sick for long periods of time, and certainly we don't care about people being healthier, we would educate them in school as to what that truly means. Do you think it's ever going to turn around in the US?
Yes, it will. Medical system will change, but like any shift is going to take time, but people are waking up. And then there are people apparently anti-aging, this whole industry is making lots of money, right? So then the word was getting out that we can make really good money by keeping people healthy instead of keeping them sick and giving them drugs that help them.
Face it, these are mostly people who have resources, who are going to the biohacking conferences and can afford a functional medicine doctor. You can't even get a doctor to cover hormone replacement therapy with insurance in this country.
People have to put their priorities. If you put your money into the insurance, because the money you put into the insurance could well cover whatever you need to do with a functional medicine doctor. There are insurance companies that are waking up. That could be part of what's going to change the landscape. There are already insurance companies that are paying for stem cell treatments.
Oh,
And
wow.
as expensive as this, because they realize that they, over the long run, they could save so much money for this person compared to making them paying for all the medications and hospitalizations and all the sick care. Things are changing. Yeah. But before it's large scale, each person would just have to be responsible for themselves. I've seen not only rich people come to my clinic, like a lot of people are just common day-to-day people who are suffering, and they realize that they're not getting help from their doctors. So their only hope is to come see people like me. It's not exorbitant. The treatment ranges between $8,000 to $18,000 for a stem cell treatment. It's not cheap, but it's not $750,000 like I've seen in gene therapy. This is when big pharma has been involved. I want to tell the readers to watch the documentary Unnatural Selection on Netflix. It talks about gene therapy. These people were going through gene therapy, which is just a little vial.
There's a gentleman who's big in the biohacking world right now, and I watched a documentary on YouTube. He went somewhere in the Caribbean and got his genes altered or something. What do you know of this?
I've seen people do
I
that.
think he went to Rotan or somewhere near Honduras, and there's some clinic there. This is
Yes,
the gentleman who sold Venmo to PayPal and
I
made so much
see.
money. Yeah, I'm sure you know who I'm talking about.
I don't know who, but I know this is going on. I've seen that even going on in the US. Of course, a little hush hush, people who are in the know. Because I remember a friend said, "Hey, I'm doing gene therapy this afternoon. I'm getting my genes
And,
changed."
and tell us what you know about that, and is this controversial?
I don't think that's legal because unless it's under a clinical study, you're changing someone's genetic material. We don't know enough about the safety of this because you have to use a viral vector to infect your own cells and then insert DNA that way. So there's so much unknown.
And why would someone do this if they had cancer or Parkinson's or they're just curious and they have a lot of money?
They could, but the person I know that did this was inserting a gene that helps with muscle growth, with enhancing body composition. So yes, people can do it for all kinds of purposes. But
we might have to do a whole nother show on that because to me that is a fascinating topic.
That's definitely not my area of expertise yet. It's so new. There's so much unknown. I will be very hesitant to alter my genes unless I've seen safety studies of the treatment.
Let's talk a little bit about topical solutions and if things that we put on our faces and our bodies really work. I kind of put on whatever on my face. I've never had a very strict skincare regime. I just intuitively, maybe I'll put an oil on one day and maybe some cream another day. Do topical products really work?
Yeah, they do. You can see it from pictures of people taking or putting on different kind of ingredients, or for example, peptides for certain plant extracts. What happens when they use it for a few weeks consistently? You could see the changes. That's what I'm doing with the skin cream that I created, that I'm incorporating multiple of these extracts and peptides. And then I'm also adding umbilical cord stem cells into this cream. So
should you use like a red light with the products to make
you
it
can.
the
You
skin?
can. I love synergy. I love synergy. I just came out of the sauna. I love doing sauna. I have a red light panel in the sauna. Red light is very helpful. Light energy is incredible. So yes, you can combine. And we have people who use our cream and do microneedling cream as the glider, because the microneedle, the penetration of your skin is going to allow more products to go deeper into your skin. So it's great because the product is 100% natural. It's called Chara Omni. So it's a product with stem cell components, with all these peptides, with all these herbal extracts and antioxidants. So you can use it post-procedure. You can use it during microneedling. I do think it's a phenomenal thing to put on your skin. And I've seen people with skin sensitivity, like sun sensitivity or spots, going away using the cream. That's the only thing I'll put on my face. I'm 53 years old and I'm happy to stand next to any 30-year-olds and compare our skin. Because of all these modalities I'm using, I can grow in the number of years that I'm living on Earth, but I don't have to degrade biologically.
I was going to say, I wouldn't mind to live to 150, but I want to make sure that my skin's looking good and that my muscles are still strong without getting that gene altering therapy. What about taking products like collagen? I've heard from some people, yes, taking collagen works. And I've heard from doctors that your stomach acid is going to break anything down that you consume orally. So don't bother. Tell us your thoughts.
I haven't done a deep dive. I personally take it. From what I heard, it sounds like people have noticed benefit, but I have to do a deep dive on literature. Personally, I do like the idea. It's going to give you, at least give you the ingredients to make collagen, even if your stomach breaks them down, but your body can assemble them.
Your stem cell skin cream is 100% natural. It contains powerful stem cells, which is awesome, and provides skin regeneration and herbal extracts. Our listeners can save 10%. I'm going to check out some of this cream myself. Maybe I'll get on a more regimented program. You can use the code MAH, as in Make America Healthy, to save 10% off. And the website is charaomni.com.
Chara is the Greek word for joy. That's the company. Chara Biologics is the one that made the cream.
Dr. Joy Kong, thank you so much. Tell us about your podcast.
It's just the Dr. Joy Kong podcast. So it's on YouTube and it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere. It's a lot of fun. I interview a lot of experts, but I also talk about stem cells in great detail on the podcast.
It's a great podcast. I've listened to it several times. We'd like to thank you so much for being on the show today. And again, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Previmedica, offering food sensitivity tests, micronutrient deficiency tests, methylation tests, and more. Check out previmedica.com. And you can use the code YogaFit at checkout to save 10 or maybe even 15% on any tests. We'd also like to thank our title sponsor, YogaFit Training Systems Worldwide, the leader in yoga, mind, body, fitness education, offering conferences. We've got one coming up, a big conference in Orlando in September. YogaFit offers teacher trainings, education, corporate wellness, and so much more, both online and in person. So check out yogafit.com. You can save 15% on any of the courses by using the code MAH15. So thank you, Dr. Kong. Until next time, if you have enjoyed this show and you're someone who's passionate about longevity and anti-aging, please share it. And have a beautiful, healthy rest of your day, everyone. Namaste. Thank you.
Namaste.